What's up guys, Cody here, today with some tips and tricks for Sage, in particular, how to effectively use her Soul Orb while on the offense. I find that Sage has a really tough time being useful when you're the attackers and you don't have control of a bomb set yet. So I was messing around in custom games to try to find unique ways to use her Slow Orb. And I came up with a couple different lobs, or whatever you want to call them, to get the Slow Orb into really good places. Or potentially useful places. It's up to you how you decide how to use these. Some of these places are going to feel pretty niche, but overall I think all of these places have a use in some fashion. So for this first one we're going to be looking at throwing it into screens all the way from spawn. All of these first three that I'm going to be showing for split on the A side all can be done from spawn. So for this one, you want to line up your cursor with this little hole here, and you're going to walk back 5 audible steps. 5 steps. You're then going to take your cursor, you're going to line yourself up with the little infrastructure here that juts out. It might be a little hard to see my cursor, but you're lining yourself up with the little infrastructure that juts out, and you're going to go to the right of it. You're going to have your cursor above it, and your cursor is going to pretty much fit right in with the grid. You're going to throw it there, and that's going to land it right in the doorway for screens. Right in the doorway for screens. So that's pretty useful. And it goes all the way back into here. All the way back into there. For this next one, we're going to be throwing it up into heaven. For this one, there's not a whole big positioning thing that you have to do for it. You just stand on this box somewhere, and then you aim for the middle of this line that's here. And yeah, that gets into heaven. And yeah, it does not cover this very corner here, but it covers the inside of here and the outside. And then the next one for A is going to get into ramps. For this one, you're going to be sitting on this plant back here. You're going to line yourself up over here where this where the infrastructure is here. You're going to go to the left of it. You need to make sure that you're far enough left of the white lines. If you're not far enough left, you hit the rooftop here. And yeah, this covers all of the ramp area here. So pretty useful in certain situations. I think these are pretty niche. The last one that I have for split is going to be from sewers into vents. For this one, you kind of want to be about here. You don't want to be too far out. And you want to aim it for right about here, right above the letter, but not too far to the left. So that, and that gets right into vents. And you can see this covers all of vents here. And yeah, the big thing with these flow orbs is that they are, you can throw them from very safe places. You could see that the first 3 were from the spawn of A side, and this one is from sewers here, which you can only be shot through these boxes, which isn't really going to happen. For the rest of the stuff that I found messing around in sewers, it wasn't exactly amazing. Like, you can do some stuff like this, but that's going to end up covering all of that, so that's not really useful. And then you can mess around with doing some stuff like this, which I think that's about where I need it to be. Yeah, so that gets it into the back corner here. And that one you can kind of just eyeball it and get it there. You might need to practice that if you really want to get this back into here. But for the most part, it's not really useful. maybe. If you wanted to get it to like here instead, you just aim a little bit higher. For this in particular, it's not really useful, I feel like, to get it here. The stairs here, if you hit your slow orb here, the stairs automatically just make it go down to the lower floor. So you end up losing your area with it. And then you can't really hit it here because this structure is in the way. So, and I'm sure that you could be able to hit your orb here, messing around with it in the practice tool if you really wanted to. But I figured that for the most part, it wouldn't really be useful to get your orb into there because you could just do it from here, or you could try doing something like this. Although that probably needs to be further back, but you get the idea. So on to bind. So we're going to be looking at the A side first, and we're going to be looking at shower side. So for these, you're going to want to line yourself up with this box here, get yourself in the corner here. And for this one, I'm going to be showing how to get it into heaven, but you can modify this to get it into anywhere onto this line here.
Here.
And get it to anywhere on that line there. So this one is going to go into heaven. You're going to just line your cursor up with the leaf there, and that is going to go all the way into heaven. You can see that this gets literally in the doorway of heaven and goes really deep into here. So that's pretty useful. If you want it anywhere else onto the site from that location, all you have to do is just adjust accordingly. So if you want it to be further towards like the showers area, you just aim higher. And obviously if you want it to be on the left side, you just aim left as well. That's pretty useful. The next one that we're going to be showing is going to be over here. This one also has a pretty nice visual cue. This one is going to be going into U-Haul. So where this palm frond is, where the shadow meets the middle of the palm frond, that's where you're going to put your cursor, and you're just going to aim right there, and that's going to go straight into U-Haul. See, it got right there, and this wraps around right into here. Depending upon how it lands, if it lands a little bit further left, it can get into here as well, but for the most part, that's enough to get the job done. And then for the last one on A side, this one doesn't really have a good visual cue. And yeah. For this one, we're going to be lining up about here and be looking up. You look up about this much. This is going to go into their A side spawn or whatever it's called. It's going to land right there. And with that setup as well, if you aim higher, you can get it to land right into here. If you aim higher and slightly to the right, you can get it to land over here. So those ones are pretty niche. The U-Haul one is probably a bit more useful than the other one, but yeah. Some other things I found were over at B side. If you line yourself up about here, where the heart just barely starts getting outside of your camera while you're hugged up against the wall, and you aim underneath the wire here about like this, that's going to go into elbow. So, see, that goes into here. If you aim it a little further down, then it'll get a little bit further back, and it'll cover more of the inside of elbow. And if you want it to be further to the right, you just aim slightly to the right. And then the other one that I found was if you line yourself up with the posters about here. This one's a little bit... You don't have to be exact, but I like to be a little bit tedious with that. And then where this arch is, you just line yourself up with the end of it, and aim up above the roof there. And you will land that right at their spawn here. If you wanted to get it further on the inside, you can. You just have to aim slightly to the right and slightly further down. But either way, it gets the job done. And yeah, pretty useful, pretty niche things that you can do. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot more useful things that you can do on Bind. There is this little part in Hookah that you can throw your Sorb into. However, it ends up covering all of Hookah as well. I don't know the exact setup for this that I found. It's about there. But Hookah has an opening in the top of it. I was off a little bit. I needed to be further up some. But essentially, you can get it into here. But if you do land it into here, you can see that this covers all of Hookah. And that kind of defeats the point of it. So, yeah. The other spot that I was messing around with a little bit, but ultimately decided it was pretty much worthless, was this spot here, the garden. These little holes here, you can actually get your orb through. However, it covers all of garden, which somewhat defeats the purpose, and a lot of times it ends up covering some of the outside of garden as well. And the setup for it isn't really good. It has a very bad visual cue, and it's kind of 50-50, because these wooden parts here for the cross sections do have hitboxes, and these vines here, these leaves, also have hitboxes. So you can only get it through pretty much these couple of holes here, which makes it very, very 50-50 for how to get it in there. For the most part, I was trying to mess around with it being like about here, walking back a certain distance, and then throwing about there. Something like that, not quite sure. But you can see that I hit the cross sections for that, and it ends up just going on top of it. Overall, it's not super useful anyways, so it doesn't really make a difference. And for the last map, Haven, I actually did find something extremely useful, and I'm gonna save that special lob for the very end. But for the most part, there's nothing crazy about Haven for the most part. You can do some crazy stuff like lobbing it from here into the sea spawn, or seaside I mean. However, it's not like it's that complicated to find a setup to do that, so I didn't really bother wasting my time to do that. Especially because it's just not worth it when there's easier things to do. But for the most part, for the stuff that I did find on Haven was actually useful things that you would probably use a lot of times. So for instance, like when you're coming up the seaside here, if you aim above the box, you can get your orb back into there. And when you're coming from here, if you want to get it into there, you can just aim off the boxes here. That'll get it into there. If you do it off of here, ends up in about the same spot, so it doesn't really matter. And you can like try to do it off of here as well. It's essentially a way to get it deeper instead of just trying to get it like there, where this would jut out a bit more. For B, there wasn't really any good spots that you could really find. Once again, a lot of this is just very simple. You can just lob it over here, and you'll end up getting it to more or less where you want it to be. Like, legit, I did this, like, first try. I think this is going to end up right where I want it to. That was a little far. I needed to do a little bit higher. But essentially, you can find a setup that gets it into here. Once again, though, I don't exactly know how useful that is. Maybe if you're trying to push into the doors here, that could be useful. But it doesn't really do much if somebody's standing on top of the boxes at B site. So, yeah. But like I said, that one's a lot easier to do, and you can just eyeball that. So, like, legit, I could just try this again now since I know what I'm doing. And aim a little bit higher, a little bit more into the middle of the thing, and then that should get right about where I want it to. Yep, right there. You can see second try, did exactly what I wanted to do it. It was a little bit too far left for my liking, and you can see that it kind of lost some of the terrain, lost some of the area of effect value is what I'll call, just because it was a little too far left and not in the middle of the doorway. But overall, you get the idea. And then for A, we're going to show the special lob here. So outside of that, you can throw... This is a little bit more practical uses. While you're coming up here, you can throw your orb into the back there from that side. That gets into the doorway here and covers all of that. And then if you're coming from a short... and you're coming from here, you can just like hit the box to get it back into here, and you've got enough room to get around this as well. So yeah, some more useful things than the other stuff. And then I'm sure like if you want to get into like the backside of A, you can just do something like this. And that'll cover the backside of A, so it'll make it so that if somebody's sitting back here, it's a bit harder for them to move around. So you can definitely be creative with some of this stuff. But now, the last one that I found, and this one is pretty special. We are going to lob from here into heaven on A. So if you aim about here, that gets in there. And you can see that gets into heaven and it gets really deep. And I'll put a clip of me and my buddy messing around with it the other day. And you can see just how far in that orb goes. And that lob is actually super useful. Because here's why. So let's say you're A side attacking and you come through and you clear out B long, or A long, my bad. If you clear out A long, you then do this lob. Okay. And then you hit heaven, you come here, you do this, and you plant the bomb here. I don't have the bomb on me, so I can't see it. But then you plant the bomb there, and you wall off this whole section here, and they can't check you from heaven because it's frozen. They could still be there in the window watching, but yeah. Overall, this is by far one of the best spots I found. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, remember to like and subscribe. And if you want more content like this in the future, let me know, because I'll be very glad to go and mess around stuff for your guys' sake to find out cool and interesting strategies that you can do. So yeah, thanks, and I'll see you all later.